In this video, I'll be showing you how to make the new Insignia bracelet using the Rainbow Loom. This is a design that I had come up with last week on the Monster Tail loom. This is one where I used red, white, and green, and then black for the outside bands, which move in and give it this kind of unique pattern on the inside. And then here's what it looks like on the reverse side, where you can see just rows of the three colors and then black in between. So for the one today, I've decided to do a little bit of a different design. So I'm going to be using white for all of the center bands, and then I have the Rainbow Loom jelly bands in the rainbow colors that I'm going to use for the outside bands, so they're going to make that pattern over top of the white. You will need about 160 bands total to make this bracelet. So you want to have your loom set up with the pins in a staggered position so they're not in line with one another, and you want the arrows to be facing towards you so that all of these opened ends are facing you. And I'm going to be using white for my center band, so I'm going to start with those. And you want to go on the third pin up on the left hand side of the loom, and the first band is going to be placed from that third pin up. It's going to stretch straight across to the pin on the right. So it's going to be a long stretch. You're skipping that center row. Now I'm taking another white band, and from here I'm going to the next pin up on the left. Again, it's going to be a long stretch that's going to go all the way across to the right. And I'm going to do another white. I'm moving to that next pin up on the left hand side, and I'm doing a long stretch over to the right. And now I'm going to take my outside color, so I'm going to start with red, and this is going to go from the second pin up in the center row. It's going to skip the next two pins and go to that next pin above. So it's crossing over top of the white bands, and I want it to go alongside on the right side of these two center pins, and I'm placing it on that next pin up. Now I want to take the bands that are on the left hand row, and I'm going to move them back over to the right to where the other side of each of those bands is. So I'm taking this rubber band on the bottom left pin, getting it on my hook, stretching it straight across to the right. I'm going to do that for all three that are on the left hand side, moving them straight across to the right. And then I want to push this all down. And so now I'm going to add my second layer. So once again, I'm going to do all white for the middle. So starting on the left hand side here, it's the third pin up from the end. I'm just going to place them in the same spot that I placed the last row. Go to the next pin up, again stretch straight across, and then to the next pin up on the left, go all the way across to the right. And now I'm going to switch to my next color, so I'm going to do orange, and it's stretching from this second pin up on the center row. It's skipping the next two, going to the right hand side, and then going to that next pin above. A long stretch, so it might be a little bit tight. And now once again, I want the bands on the left hand side to move straight across to the right. So I'm just going to get that on my hook and move it across. Doing that for all three. And now that I have two layers on, I want to remove the bottom layer. So I'm going to take the bottom two rubber bands on these three pins on the right hand side, grabbing the bottom two, and I'm going to pull them over the top and into the middle. Just make sure these upper bands do not come off as you're doing that. Doing that for the center pin, and now for the next pin up, I'm going to push all of this down. And now finally, I want the bottom rubber bands on the two end pins to come off. So I'm going to grab this bottom red band on the pin that's closest to me in the center row. But instead of just releasing that, what I'm going to do is move that to this center pin on the right hand side. So it's going to stretch in and go over this center pin. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side here. I'm going to have to grab this band from the outside since you can't go in through this open area because it's going around the back side of the pin. So you're going to have to just grab this from the side, pulling it over the top, but then I'm moving it into this center pin on the right hand row. And now I'm going to push all of this down. And so now I'm back to white. Again, I'm starting on this third pin up on the left hand side, and it's stretching all the way across to the right. Go to the pin above, same thing, and then go to the next pin up, again stretching all the way across. Now I'm going to do my next color, so I have the yellow, and I'm starting here on the second pin up. It's going around the right hand side, skipping the next two pins up and going to that next pin above. Now I want the white bands that are on the left to come straight across to the right. Doing that for all three. And from this point on, I'm going to follow a little bit of a different pattern when I remove the bottom layer. So starting on the pin on the right, the one that's closest to me, I want the bottom two white bands to come over the top. That's going to be the same. And then on the far side, on this top pin on the right, I want the bottom two rubber bands to come over the top. But it's the center one that's going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to ignore the top two white bands. What I want to happen is I want the bottom two white bands to come up through the red bands and then over the top. So I'm just skipping the top two white. I want to get these two red bands to go behind my hook. You can see I'm using the back of my hook to push them out. Now I'm grabbing the two white. They're going to come up through the red and then over the top. And now I also want the two red bands to come off. And so I'm going to grab them both at once, pull them over the top, and as I pull these over, I'm going to keep them up against the pin. So you can see that the white bands that are already there are going to be in front of these red bands. By doing that and leaving this little white part sticking forward, it's going to give this look where you can see it on the bracelet that it sticks out just a little bit. Now if when you're pulling these over, let me see if I can grab these red bands again. These red bands go in front of that white band. It's going to give the bracelet a little bit of a different look, and let me show you what that would look like. On the end here I put it behind so you could see the difference. So it just gives it a little bit of a different look. Here's the ones that are sticking in front, and then here's the ones that are hidden. So I've decided for this bracelet I am going to have the colored bands go in front of the white bands so you won't see that little end of the white stick out, just for a change, something different than the last tutorial. And so now I'm going to take the bottom orange bands on the end. This is my last step. I'm going to pick these up, pull them over the top, and it's going to go on this center pin. And now on the top here, I'm going to have to grab this orange band from the side. It's going over the top and on that center pin on the right. I'm going to push this down, and now I'm ready to add my next layer. So I'm taking the white bands, going on that third pin up on the left-hand row. You're going straight across to the right, doing that for the next pin up, and then the next pin up as well. So now I'm going to change to my next color, which is green. It's going on the second pin up in the middle, going to the right hand side of the next two pins, and going over that next pin above that. Now I'm getting the bands on the left to come straight across to the right. And now on the right hand side, I want the 2 white bands on the bottom of the pin closest to me to come over. Going to that top pin on the right, and those 2 bottom bands are coming over. But now here on the center, I want those 2 white bands to go up through the orange and then over. So I'm getting these 2 orange bands to go behind my hook, grabbing the 2 white, they're coming up through and over. And now the 2 orange are also going to come over, and I'm just making sure they're going in front of those white bands for this bracelet. And finally, I have the yellow bands that are going to come off of the ends and into the center. Grabbing this from the side here and moving it to the middle. And as your bracelet starts to grow, if you have a rainbow loom, you can just have it grow down through this open area in between the rows of pins. But if you have a loom that has a solid base, you're going to have the bracelet work its way out in between the pins. So you can either do it on the front here, or you could do it on the back. It probably would be easier to do it here on the left-hand side. And so I'm pushing all of this down, and I'm going to add my next layer. So it's going to be the whites that are going from the left to the right. And now I'll switch to my next color, which I have this dark blue, going in the center, going around the 2 middle pins on the right hand side. And now the bands on the left are going to come over to the right. And now on the right side, the bottom 2 on the pin closest to me coming off. And then at the top, the bottom 2. And then finally in the middle, going behind these yellow bands, grabbing the bottom 2 white, and they're coming over. And now the 2 yellow, making sure they're going in front of the white. And now the green are going to come off and into the middle. I'm going to push these down a little. And then the same thing for the other side. And push this all down. So I will just fast forward here, and when I have the bracelet to the length I'd like it, I'll show you what to do to remove it from the loom. When you have your bracelet to the length that you'd like it and you're ready to take it off of the loom, you're going to start by taking the band that is closest to you in the center. Should just be 1 single band on this pin. And you're going to move it to the right. And now these bottom 2 white bands are going to come over the top. And now I'm going to take the band that is in the middle, and I'm going to move that to the pin on the right that's below. Again, I'm taking the bottom 2 white bands and pulling them over the top. And so now I'm going to take this purple band that's closest to me, and I'm going to move this into the center. And I'm going to take the one on the pin above, and I'm going to move that down. So now there are 6 bands on this pin. I'm going to take the bottom 2 white bands and pull them over the top, and then I'm going to take the next bottom 2 blue bands and pull them over. So I'm left with just the 2 purple. So I'm going to take these on my hook, and I will pull this off of the loom. I have a clip here. I have an S clip. You can use whatever clip you have available. Just going to put these 2 purple bands through the one side. I'm going to go to the other side here. I'll pick up these 2 red bands, and now I'm just going to hook these through the other side of the clip, and then here's your bracelet. So you have all of these rainbow bands that make the design on top of the white. And then on the other side, it's mostly white, but you can see a little bit of the rainbow in between the rows. So it gives it that little bit of a different look than the other ones. Here was that first one that I had shown you earlier in the video. This is where I have the little end sticking through, so you can see the little bit of a different look it has. And then here is another one that I had made in the monster tail video with the gold and silver and white. So there's a lot of different color choices, and then depending on how you place that middle band, it gives it that little bit of a different look. So this is the Insignia Bracelet, and I hope that everyone enjoyed making it. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on all of my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Instagram and Pinterest, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well. Thanks for watching!